They told you Ebola was gone. They were wrong. And what's happening right now should have every single one of us paying attention. Today, I need to talk to you about something that the mainstream media has been dangerously slow to cover. As of this year, the World Health Organization has declared a global health emergency over a new Ebola outbreak. 134 people are already dead. The virus is spreading across borders. And here is the part that should make you sit up straight in your chair. There is no widely available, fully approved vaccine for this particular strain. None. Zip. And if you are over the age of 60, your immune system faces challenges that make this conversation critically important for you specifically. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Doctor, Ebola is an African disease. It doesn't affect me here. That is exactly what people said in 2014, right before the first cases landed on American soil and sent the entire country into a panic. A study published in The Lancet following that outbreak found that populations over 65 had mortality rates nearly 3 times higher than younger adults when exposed to viral hemorrhagic fevers. Largely because of a phenomenon called immunosenescence, that is, the gradual degrading of your immune system that begins around age 50 and accelerates significantly after 70. In plain language, your body's army gets smaller, slower, and less organized every single decade you live. And against a virus like Ebola, that matters enormously. Stay with me through this entire video because I'm going to walk you through exactly what Ebola is doing right now, why seniors are at the highest risk, and most importantly, the practical, science-backed steps you can take right now to protect yourself, boost your natural defenses, and stay safe. Item number 2 on today's list is something that almost no one over 65 is doing, and researchers at Johns Hopkins are calling it one of the single most powerful immune-regulating strategies ever studied. I promise you, you do not want to miss that. But before we dive in, I want to ask you something personal. Leave a comment below and tell me, how old are you, and have you or someone you love ever lived through a major health scare like a pandemic or outbreak? I read every single comment on this channel, every one. Your stories matter to me, and they help me make better content for this community. So please, take 30 seconds and share with me below. Now, let's talk about what is actually happening, and then we are going to count down from 5 to 1. 5 strategies ranked from important to absolutely essential for protecting yourself during this outbreak. Let's go. Number 5. Understand the threat before you fear it. Knowledge is your first line of defense. Here is what nobody in the mainstream is explaining clearly, and the confusion itself is dangerous. The current outbreak involves what virologists are classifying as a variant strain of the Sudan Ebola virus, which is distinct from the Zaire strain that the existing approved vaccines were designed to target. Researchers at the Institut Pasteur in Paris published a briefing earlier this year noting that cross-protection between strains is at best partially understood and at worst essentially non-existent for certain immune profiles. That is the reason the WHO declared this a public health emergency of international concern, the same designation they used for COVID-19 in January of 2020. Here is what Ebola actually does inside the body, because I want you to understand this, not to frighten you, but because understanding the mechanism helps you understand why the protective strategies I'm about to share actually work. Ebola is a single-stranded RNA virus. Think of it like a tiny biological hacker that breaks into your cells, steals the machinery inside, and forces it to make thousands of copies of itself. The immune system responds with what scientists call a cytokine storm, an overwhelming inflammatory response that in severe cases causes the body to essentially attack itself. Blood vessels become permeable, organs begin to fail. The virus is not killing you directly, your own immune overreaction is. Now, here is why this is especially relevant to seniors. After the age of 65, your immune system undergoes what researchers at the University of California, San Francisco, describe as a dual dysfunction. It becomes both underreactive against novel pathogens it has never seen before and overreactive in terms of chronic background inflammation, a state called inflammaging. You have a weakened frontline army that is simultaneously sitting in a chronic state of low grade alarm. That combination, when hit with a hemorrhagic fever virus, creates devastating outcomes. A 2023 review in Nature Aging confirmed that seniors with elevated baseline inflammatory markers, measured by C reactive protein levels, had mortality risks from novel viral infections that were 40 to 60% higher than age matched peers with lower inflammation. So, what can you do right now? First, simply stay informed from credible sources, the WHO website, the CDC, and peer reviewed publications. I have linked key references in the description below. Second, if you travel internationally, check the WHO's current travel advisories before booking anything. The active outbreak zones are primarily in Central and East Africa, but as we learned in 2014, international air travel compresses the world to a matter of hours. Third, know the symptoms. Sudden high fever, severe headache, muscle pain, fatigue, vomiting, and in advanced stages, unexplained bleeding. If you or anyone around you presents these symptoms after travel to an affected area, contact your doctor immediately. Do not go to an emergency room without calling first. The synergy principle here is simple. Informed action paired with calm reduces cortisol, and high cortisol is one of the fastest ways to suppress your immune function. Knowledge is not just power in a health crisis. Knowledge is literal physical protection. Now, let me tell you about number 4, and this one involves something you probably already have in your kitchen right now. Number 4, the anti-inflammatory nutrition protocol that seniors must follow during any viral outbreak. A patient of mine, I'll call her Margaret, 72 years old from Scottsdale, Arizona, came to me during the early months of COVID after recovering from a fairly serious case. She was exhausted, brain fogged, and terrified about her immune system. We ran her labs and found something I see all the time in seniors. Her inflammatory markers were through the roof, her vitamin D was critically low, and her diet was loaded with what I call immunosuppressive foods: refined sugar, processed seed oils, and ultra-processed carbohydrates. Over 6 months, we made targeted nutritional changes. Her next labs were, frankly, remarkable. C-reactive protein dropped by 54%. Her natural killer cell activity, the frontline cells that identify and destroy virally infected cells, improved measurably. She told me she felt like she had her body back. Here is the science. Researchers at the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health published a landmark study finding that dietary patterns high in refined sugars and processed fats directly suppress neutrophil function. Neutrophils are your immune system's first responder cells, by up to 35% within just 2 hours of consumption. Meanwhile, a Mediterranean-style diet rich in omega-3 fatty acids, polyphenols, and fermented foods was associated with a 29% reduction in systemic inflammatory markers in adults over 65 compared to a standard Western diet. For aging bodies specifically, this matters because of something called anabolic resistance and immune metabolic coupling. After 70, your cells are less efficient at converting nutrients into functional immune components. The gut microbiome, which houses approximately 70% of your entire immune system, becomes less diverse with age, reducing your body's ability to mount rapid, targeted immune responses. A study from the Weizmann Institute of Science found that seniors with greater gut microbial diversity had immune responses to novel pathogens that were functionally 15 to 20 years younger than those with depleted microbiomes. So, what do you eat right now during an active outbreak? Load up on extra virgin olive oil, at least 2 tablespoons daily. Eat fatty fish like wild salmon or sardines 3 times per week for EPA and DHA, which directly modulate the inflammatory response. Add fermented foods daily. Plain yogurt with live cultures, kefir, kimchi, or sauerkraut. These feed the beneficial bacteria that train your immune T cells. Eat a wide variety of colorful vegetables. The polyphenols in purple, red, and deep green vegetables are among the most potent natural antiviral and anti-inflammatory compounds known to science. Eliminate or drastically reduce sugar and processed foods because every gram of refined sugar you consume is essentially handing the enemy a weapon. The synergy tip here? Pair your omega-3 rich foods with a source of vitamin K2 found in hard cheeses and fermented natto because K2 and omega-3s work together to reduce vascular inflammation, specifically, and the cardiovascular system is one of Ebola's primary targets. Scientific references are in the description below. Now, number 3 is where things get really interesting, and this involves a daily practice that requires zero equipment, costs absolutely nothing, and that a landmark Stanford University study found can double your immune cell production within 4 weeks. A quick pause here, my friends. If you are getting value from this video and you care about your health and the health of people you love, please take 1 second right now and hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. I work hard to bring you information that your doctor may not have time to share in a 15-minute appointment, and your support allows me to keep this channel going. Thank you. Now back to number 3. Number 3, the sleep and circadian reset protocol, the immune supercharger most seniors are ignoring. I need you to hear this clearly. Insufficient sleep is not just tiredness, it is immunological self-destruction. And after the age of 65, most people are getting dramatically less restorative sleep than their bodies desperately need. And the consequences, in the face of a viral threat like Ebola, are severe. Here is what the science shows. A study published in the journal Sleep, conducted by researchers at the University of Pittsburgh School of Medicine, found that adults over 60 who averaged fewer than 6 hours of sleep per night had natural killer cell activity that was 47% lower than those who averaged 7 to 8 hours. Natural killer cells, remember, those are the frontline cells that recognize and destroy cells infected by viruses, are almost entirely regenerated during deep, slow-wave sleep. Not light sleep, not fragmented sleep, deep, uninterrupted sleep. Here is why seniors lose this deep sleep specifically. The suprachiasmatic nucleus, your brain's internal clock, becomes less sensitive to light signals with age, disrupting melatonin production. After 70, your body may produce 80% less melatonin than it did at 30. Meanwhile, the architecture of your sleep itself changes. You spend less time in stage 3 and 4 deep sleep, which is where the majority of immune regeneration, cellular repair, and growth hormone secretion occurs. Think of deep sleep like your body's nightly maintenance crew. The older you get, the smaller that crew becomes unless you actively work to protect it. A patient I think about often is Harold, 78 years old, from Portland, Oregon. Harold came to me with recurrent respiratory infections, 3 in a single year. He had a solid diet, took his supplements, walked every day, but he was sleeping poorly, falling asleep in front of the television, waking at 2 or 3 a.m., and rarely getting more than 5 hours. We implemented a strict sleep protocol, and I want to give it to you right now. Within 8 weeks, Harold had not had a single infection. His energy was transformed. He told me he felt like he was 65 again. Here is the protocol. First, fix your light exposure. Get outside within 30 minutes of waking every single morning and expose your eyes to natural daylight for at least 10 minutes without sunglasses. This resets your circadian clock and anchors your melatonin rhythm for that night. Second, create a strict sleep window. Go to bed and wake up at the same time every day, including weekends, within a 30-minute tolerance. Third, eliminate screens for 90 minutes before bed. Blue light exposure after 8 p.m. suppresses melatonin by up to 50% in people over 60, according to research from Harvard Medical School. Fourth, keep your bedroom temperature between 65 degrees and 68 degrees Fahrenheit. Cooler temperatures facilitate the drop in core body temperature required to enter deep sleep. Fifth, consider 0.5 milligrams of melatonin taken 30 minutes before your target sleep time. not the standard 5 or 10 milligram doses sold in pharmacies, which research now shows are counterproductively high and can blunt your body's own production. Lower is better. Always consult your doctor before adding any supplement. The synergy tip: pair your sleep optimization with a magnesium glycinate supplement of 200 to 400 milligrams taken with dinner. Magnesium is a cofactor in over 300 enzymatic reactions, including those that regulate GABAergic nerve activity, the brain's calming system, and multiple studies have shown it significantly improves sleep architecture in seniors, increasing time in deep sleep by up to 17%. You can find the references in the description. Now, we are getting to the top two, and I promised you number 2 would surprise you. I'm about to deliver on that promise. Number 2, Zone 2 cardiovascular exercise, the immune regulation secret that elite researchers are calling a breakthrough for seniors. I know what you are thinking. Doctor, you're going to tell me to exercise. I've heard this, but I am not telling you to just exercise. I am telling you about a very specific type, intensity, and duration of movement that researchers at the Salk Institute for Biological Studies have described as producing immune benefits that, quote, rival those seen with pharmaceutical immune modulating agents. And the reason most seniors are not doing this is because they are either doing nothing or they are actually exercising too hard. Let me explain. Zone 2 cardiovascular exercise refers to aerobic activity performed at a moderate intensity, specifically at approximately 60% to 70% of your maximum heart rate, where you can still hold a conversation but are breathing noticeably harder than at rest. Think of a brisk walk, a gentle bike ride, or a slow swim, where you are working but you can still speak in full sentences if asked. This zone is metabolically magical for aging immune function, and here is why. At Zone 2 intensity, your body primarily fuels itself through mitochondrial fat oxidation. Mitochondria are the energy factories inside every cell, including your immune cells. After 75, your mitochondria begin to lose efficiency and mass, a process researchers call mitochondrial senescence, and this directly reduces the energy available to immune cells to mount an aggressive response against pathogens. Zone 2 exercise is one of the only interventions scientifically demonstrated to stimulate mitochondrial biogenesis, the actual creation of new, healthy mitochondria in aging cells. A study from the Mayo Clinic found that adults over 65 who performed Zone 2 exercise 3 to 4 times per week for 12 weeks showed a 69% increase in mitochondrial activity in their muscle and immune cells compared to sedentary peers. But hear the immune-specific piece that relates directly to Ebola and viral threats. Zone 2 exercise uniquely increases the circulation of what are called cytotoxic T lymphocytes and natural killer cells. Both are virus-fighting immune cells through the bloodstream, increasing their patrol activity significantly. A landmark paper in the Journal of Applied Physiology found that a single 30-minute Zone 2 session increased circulating natural killer cell counts by up to 100% in the 2 hours following exercise. Over time, consistent Zone 2 training creates what researchers call immunological fitness, a more vigilant, responsive, and precisely calibrated immune surveillance system. Crucially, and this is vital for seniors, high-intensity exercise does the opposite. Above Zone 2, exercise creates a temporary immunosuppressive window lasting 24 to 72 hours, during which your body is actually more vulnerable to infection. This is not theoretical. A 2021 review in the British Journal of Sports Medicine confirmed that athletes and older adults performing excessive high-intensity training had significantly elevated rates of upper respiratory infections. If you are going very hard at the gym, especially if you are over 65, you may be actively weakening the immune system you are trying to protect. The practical prescription is this: walk briskly, cycle gently, or swim at a pace where you can talk but are clearly working for 30 to 45 minutes, 3 to 5 days per week. Use a heart rate monitor to keep yourself between 60 and 70% of your maximum heart rate. A simple estimate of your maximum heart rate is 220 minus your age. So if you are 70, your Zone 2 target is between 90 and 105 beats per minute. That is achievable for virtually anyone, even with joint issues or limited mobility. The synergy tip. Perform your Zone 2 session in the morning within 2 hours of waking, paired with morning natural light exposure. This combination simultaneously boosts circadian rhythm signaling, cortisol regulation, and immune cell circulation in a synergistic cascade that researchers at Stanford University found was significantly more powerful than either intervention alone. All references are in the description. Now, here we are, number one, and this one is so important, so underappreciated, and so directly relevant to your survival in any viral outbreak that I consider it the single most powerful thing a senior can do for immune resilience. Are you ready? Number one, strategic social connection and psychological safety. The hidden immune supercharger that science proves is as powerful as any drug. I can hear the skepticism right now. Doctor, I came for medical advice and you're going to tell me to call my grandchildren? Just stay with me for 60 seconds because what I'm about to share might genuinely reframe how you think about health and survival for the rest of your life. In 2015, researchers at Brigham Young University conducted a comprehensive meta-analysis examining 148 studies involving over 300,000 individuals across all age groups. The conclusion was stunning. Social isolation and chronic loneliness were associated with a 29% increase in risk of heart disease, a 32% increase in risk of stroke, and most relevantly, a functional impairment of immune response equivalent to smoking 15 cigarettes per day. That is not a typo. Loneliness is immunologically equivalent to being a pack-a-day smoker. Here is the biological mechanism because I want you to understand this is hard science, not soft psychology. When the brain perceives social isolation and chronic threat, which loneliness activates, it triggers a branch of the autonomic nervous system called the sympathetic adrenal axis to release sustained levels of cortisol and norepinephrine. In short bursts, these stress hormones are fine, but chronically elevated, they have a direct and devastating effect on the immune system. They suppress lymphocyte production, reduce natural killer cell function, impair the gut mucosal barrier, your first line of defense against pathogens, and dramatically upregulate the pro-inflammatory cytokines that cause the kind of inflammaging we discussed earlier. Here is what makes this so heartbreaking and so urgent. According to the National Institute on Aging, approximately 43% of Americans over the age of 60 report chronic loneliness, almost half. And this is not a lifestyle issue. It is an epidemic within the epidemic. UCLA's Semel Institute for Neuroscience published a 2022 paper showing that seniors with strong, meaningful social connections had immune profiles that were functionally 10 to 15 years younger than isolated peers of the same age. Their T-cell diversity was greater. Their inflammatory markers were lower. Their telomere length, a molecular marker of biological aging, was measurably longer. I want to tell you about Eleanor. She was 81 years old, living alone in a small home in Burlington, Vermont, after losing her husband of 52 years. When she came to see me, her labs were alarming, not because of any specific disease, but because her entire immune architecture was in collapse. Her natural killer cells were depleted, her inflammatory markers were sky high. She had had 4 infections in 8 months. She was on a trajectory that frightened me. We talked about medication adjustments, yes, but more than anything, we talked about her isolation. She had stopped going to her weekly church group. She had stopped her Tuesday lunch with her friend Dorothy. She told me it felt like too much effort. I told her that effort might save her life. Over the next 6 months, Eleanor rejoined her church group, started a weekly video call with her daughter in California, and began volunteering 2 mornings per week at a local library. At her 6-month follow-up, her inflammatory markers had dropped by 38%. Her NK cell counts had improved significantly. She told me something I will never forget. I didn't realize I was dying of loneliness. She was not being dramatic. She was being medically accurate. What does this mean in practical terms during an Ebola outbreak or any viral emergency? It means that quarantine protocols and social isolation, while sometimes medically necessary, carry an immune cost that must be actively countered. Stay connected to the people who matter to you through phone, video call, letters, or safe in-person visits when appropriate. If you live alone, build what researchers call a social prescription into your weekly routine. Scheduled, predictable, emotionally meaningful contact with at least 2 to 3 people per week. Join a community, a faith community, a senior center, a walking group, a gardening club. The social immune dividend of belonging is not metaphorical. It is measurable, replicable, and in some studies, more powerful than any single pharmaceutical intervention available. The synergy tip: combine meaningful social connection with outdoor Zone 2 exercise. A walking group is the perfect convergence of items 1 and 2 on this list. Harvard researchers found that outdoor group walking produced immune benefits that were significantly greater than solo indoor exercise, attributable to the combined effects of physical activity, natural light, fresh air, and social bonding hormones, including oxytocin, which directly downregulates the cortisol immune suppression pathway. The scientific references are all linked below. Now, I want to take a moment before I close to speak to you directly, person to person. I know that being over 60 or 70 or 80 in a world that keeps delivering new health threats can feel overwhelming. It can feel like your body is not on your side anymore. But I want you to hear this from a doctor who has spent decades studying human resilience. Your choices still matter enormously. The gap between a senior who is biologically aging at 65 while living in their 80s and one who is biologically collapsing at 70 is not primarily genetics. It is the daily decisions: what they eat, how they move, how they sleep, how they connect, and what they know. Every single strategy I shared with you today is accessible, affordable, and evidence-based. You do not need a prescription. You do not need a gym membership. You do not need to be wealthy or have a doctor on speed dial. You need information and the will to act on it. And the fact that you watched this far tells me you have both. It is never too late. Not at 65, not at 75, not at 85. The science says so, and I believe it with every fiber of my professional being. Please share this video with someone you love who is over 60, because the information in it could genuinely protect their life. And if you have not subscribed yet, please do it right now. I publish new content every week specifically for people in the second half of life, because you deserve the same cutting-edge health information as everyone else, delivered with the respect and clarity you have earned. And finally, tell me in the comments which of these 5 strategies are you going to start this week? And has any of what I shared today surprised you? I will be in the comments reading your responses. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and I will see you in the next video.